Living green or sustainably is about more than saving on your electric bill and doing your part to protect natural resources. It is about a safer and healthier life for you and your family without sacrificing style, quality, or budget. This is a movement to provide all of us with clean air to breathe and water to drink, safe, healthy food to eat, and places to live, and energy to run the places where we live, learn, play, and work. The Everyday Green Home Podcast helps you get the value of green for you, your family, and your community. Whether it's green homes, green living, or the people who make it happen, join me, Marla Esser Close, to learn how green and sustainability practices and products work for you and our world. Good afternoon, world. I'm Marla, the Green Home Coach, and I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation today with Suzanne Shelton. Suzanne, you and I have known each other for, several years now.
Long time, yeah.
Yeah. Give us a quick introduction who you are and why we're here.
Sure. The official elevator pitch is that Shelton Group is the country's leading marketing communications firm, exclusively focused in the sustainability space, but I would broaden that to call it the ESG space, environment, social governance. Our purpose, the reason we exist, is to help companies gain a market advantage as a result of what they're doing to create a sustainable, socially just world. So how we do that is through ongoing insights gathering. What's the market thinking and expecting, and how are those thoughts and expectations translating into the brands that they prefer, as well as the products that they buy. And once we have those insights, we then apply them in the form of marketing communication strategies, as well as communication platforms. And then we amplify that out over time on behalf of our clients. So that's a quick elevator pitch on who we are. I founded the company, it'll be 29 years ago in 2 weeks, clearly when I was 12.
Yeah.
And we've been only focused in this space for the last 15 years.
I have followed so much of y'all's work for, since I found you, actually, I guess was 4 or 5 years ago now. And one of the things that I have felt so much in the work that y'all do is that there's a lot of common sense in it.
Yeah, because you know what? Okay, so you should know that our bias is that we believe in the power of innovation, and we believe in the power of entrepreneurialism, and fundamentally the power of business and competition. I'm sort of wired that way. And then as a company, we believe that we've seen amazing things happen in the world and amazing innovations get created because of creativity, innovation, entrepreneurialism, competition. These are great sources of inspiration for creating lots of goodness in the world. Also creating lots of badness in the world too, by the way. But these are great motivators to go out and solve some of the world's biggest problems. And there are many enormous problems that need to be solved. So our lens, our framework is that business can be a force for good to solve some of those problems, but the only way realistically, so back to the common sense thing, the only way realistically that businesses are going to be a force for good is if there is some monetary value in it. Businesses, they're nonprofits. So when you think about like triple bottom line, there has to be a way they can add money to the bottom line while they are doing good for people and the planet. So just know as we have this conversation that we are framed to believe that business can be a force for good, provided that it also benefits them in terms of financials. But that's where the common sense comes in, right? It's like, we can't be suggesting things to corporate America that they're like, really? That seems like a long way around the barn. Or that seems like it might not pay off. We've got to be able to pragmatically say, look, when we talk about market advantage, here are the ways in which you can create a market advantage. Here are the ways in which you can measure that. And then here are the ways you can execute against that. So it does need to be rather pragmatic.
Well, I think so many people feel like they can either talk money or they can talk action or beliefs, and they all have to be there, don't they?
Yep, they do. And the great thing is that we see that changing. The other thing you should know is I'm an optimist, right? We are in the middle of a you-know-what storm right now on every front.
Yep.
And I am an optimist that we will come out the other side better and stronger. And I'm an optimist that we can indeed solve some of the world's greatest challenges. So you should probably also know that about me as we go through this conversation.
Well, that's something that we definitely have in common. I wish Hope was my middle name because that's what I feel. And, we've personally been through some major crazy stuff, and it has made us stronger. And to bring that into our business life is very meaningful because it gives us a whole new level of how we relate to everything that we do. I see that as so many people that I talk to, and especially so in June right now. So we're in the middle of the pandemic. We've had the protests. We have all kinds of craziness just in the world in general that I really kind of feel like the pandemic and the protests probably were some of the last straws in the camel's back. That's at least how I've seen it. But so much stuff that has just been stacking up, and it's complicated stuff.
Yep. It is complicated.
But I also know, like you said, that some of the very best work and some of the very best solutions come at a time when we are just really not sure what to do. I'm starting to see glimmers of hope that there's stuff like that coming out.
I'll tell you, the good news, I think, is that Wall Street is now asking questions that they weren't asking 5 years ago.
Yes.
Investors are asking questions on investor calls with Fortune 500 companies about diversity and inclusion policies or about greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, they are asking questions that if a company doesn't have their environmental or social act together, they can't answer the questions. It makes them uncomfortable. I mean, there is a way in which for 15 years I've been banging my head against a brick wall, doing all this consumer research, going to large companies and saying, look, this is what people expect from you. This is what they expect from you if they want to come work for you or if they want to buy products from you. And, some companies have gotten along and said, okay, but very few have gotten along in a way where they've really pushed their chips to the center of the table and said, okay, we are going to bank our purpose and the future of the company on something that ties to environment or social good. So it's been more get it, that people sort of expect that and we should have a story around that. Great, we'll do that. But it hasn't been an all-in effort. And now that we've got Wall Street asking questions, now it feels like financials are part of environment and society work streams, if you will. It's kind of like there used to be a work stream inside corporate America on environment and a work stream on maybe corporate social responsibility and HR and philanthropy kinds of things. And then somewhere over here is profits, accounting, all that. They've been totally separate. And by Wall Street asking really good questions, all those three things are coming together and it's getting corporate America's attention. And so I think that's great because now corporate America is motivated in a way that they weren't before. If you're a Fortune 500 and you're scoring, a D or a 2 out of 10 on some of your ESG rating score sheets, that instantly is kind of embarrassing. Not kind of, it is embarrassing. And instantly it gets the board of directors' attention. It gets the executive management team's attention that, wait, holy cow, how are we ranked so low? And wait, let's look at our score compared to our nearest competitor scores. And oh my gosh, we're trailing them. So again, back to the power of competition and also the power of rankings and numbers and that sort of thing to propel us forward. So really the best thing that's happened in my view in terms of moving us all towards the creation of a sustainable future has been that Wall Street's asking questions that they didn't ask before. And before we went live, Marley, you were asking if I'd seen the Green Biz piece from Joel Mackauer today. And I did. And he says in his piece, so Joel, I hope you listen to this. He says in his piece, Wall Street's probably not going to ask questions about diversity and inclusion and, what are companies really doing beyond just the words that they've all been putting out there about standing with Black Lives Matter? What are they actually going to do and who's going to hold them accountable to that? And he says he doesn't think Wall Street will. I think he's wrong. I think Wall Street is going to hold them accountable because part of the ESG framework is that there are very real metrics on all host of social issues, including gender equity, racial equity, pay equity. I mean, there are a whole bunch of metrics on that. And I do think Wall Street's going to ask questions. And I think particularly what's happening right now in the country is generally not good for business, right? It's there is no business case for a 2-degree increase in global temperatures. There is also no business case for societal unrest. So everything that's happening here, and like you mentioned globally and kind of the trend toward totalitarianism, I mean, none of this is good for business in the long run. So if you're a business person, you want to embrace stakeholder capitalism, you want to embrace a triple bottom line approach because that is the way that we're going to make sense of the world. It's the way we're going to create peace in the world. And it's the best way for us to move forward. Best for business, best for people, best for the planet. It just makes total sense to me. And this is not about hugging trees. I mean, it's about all those things being served. Okay, let's take care of people, let's take care of the planet, and let's take care of the money too, right? I mean,
and they're all related. That's the part that I think so many people, and you and I've had so many conversations about this, is so many people put everything in silos.
Right.
And you can't. It's just like every other system of systems. They all relate to each other. They all balance each other.
Exactly.
And balance, I mean, we're out of balance and we're very out of balance.
Right. And it's obvious. And that's what the protests in the street are about. And again, I feel, I spent, after George Floyd was murdered, I spent about a week, you and I talked during this week, just in despair about, my God, one more time, how are we going to fix this? I've turned a corner, and as the protests continue to rage on, and I hope they don't ever stop. I hope the protests do not stop until we really have some meaningful solutions to this, because I think they are going to press forward and create real change. So I feel hopeful on racial equity in a way that I haven't ever. I feel like we might be getting to a place where we can turn this around. And we see that in our data, Marla, we see, and this has been about widely as well, that, Gen Z and millennials are a more diverse group than the cohort you and I grew up with. And so for them, this is kind of like a no-brainer. Like, why would we treat anybody differently because of their religion, their skin color, their sexual orientation? Like, why would we do that? Because I have friends of all the different colors of the rainbow. Like, that doesn't make any sense to a lot of people under the age of 30. So they're the ones out there protesting. They're the ones demanding change. And it's great. And this is how we create change. Young people getting out there and demanding something better for the world that they're inheriting. So I feel pretty hopeful. And I hope they stay out there and keep the energy on it.
Hey, this is Marla Close, the Green Home Coach, and I am the author of Living Green Effortlessly, Simple Choices for a Better Home. And in this book, besides talking about a bunch of stuff about green and sustainability products and practices you can easily take in your home, I also talk about home maintenance and how important this is to having a home that serves you rather than you serving it. Seasonal home maintenance checklists are a big part of this, and I teamed up with colleague Tina Gleisner from Home Tips for Women to use her maintenance checklist, actually included in the book, starting on page 96. And if you have the book, look them up. But I wanted to give you a brief excerpt from the book to get you excited about why home maintenance checklists, I know that doesn't sound very exciting, but why they are so important. So, maintaining a home is actually a 3-part ongoing process: inspect, maintain, and update. To help you keep track of what you've done and plan to do, make notes on the checklist. First, inspect. If you've only got an hour to spare, pick one exterior side of the house or one room inside to inspect. Note the date you did this on the checklist and flag items needing maintenance or repairs so you can schedule time or make a list for your handyman or handy woman. Second, maintain. Keep your home safe, such as smoke detector batteries. Keep your home energy efficient, like furnace air filters, and prolong the useful life of many home features, like caulking bathroom tile. Write it down when you complete a task, keeps you from guessing later on. And third, update. Take advantage of improved materials and fixtures. Upgrade to new building codes, and evaluate when it makes more sense to make an improvement rather than repair, such as replacing a bathroom floor rather than repairing the grout. Check out the book or give me a holler and I'll hook you up online to get the maintenance checklist for yourself. If you'd like to have the entire book, please go to livinggreenbook.com for a multitude of ways to purchase it for yourself. Thanks again. This is Marla, the Green Home Coach. I remember, eons ago, listening to a talk that was given by a gentleman that was a Gen Xer, and he'd written this book about how trends, particularly in the workforce, would start with the youngest part of the workforce and then work their way up. And that just really stuck with me because that is where we see change. And they're the people that have to live with this the longest. And my kids are in this category, and I want them to have the best possible world they can. What's
their view on this, Marla? Are they out there protesting? Are they raising their voice on social media? Like, what are they doing?
I really haven't asked them that question, and I really should. Everybody's been so nose to the grindstone with just work things, and our son-in-law is in the medical profession, so he's been in the hospital a lot. Well, actually, I know my daughter and I texted early on, and one of her thoughts kind of rang true and a little scary was, I just hope that this can bring real change, but I'm scared it won't. But she's also much more pragmatic than most people her age, so that may be part of it. But I know, I was reading something the other day. It said, we're just weary, we're just tired. And I get that, but we cannot go backwards. And especially some of the older people in my life just keep saying, we just want to go back to the way it was. And it's like, there is no backwards.
Well, and the way it wasn't great. The way it was great for a select portion of the population, but not everybody else. That's kind of the problem with Make America Great Again. I mean, that's about great for a certain population. And I understand why they want it to be the way it was before. They had a lot of benefits and a lot of things swung their way. I get it. But our population is totally different now. We're so much more diverse. We're a global community now, not just a local community. And so we can't go backwards because A, backwards wasn't great for everybody, and B, we're totally different than we were. We've moved on.
A lot of your work has been around the ESG framework, which is something that a lot of lay people may or may not be familiar with. But a couple of thoughts that I would love to share with people is just a quick, 101 on what that is and how do we use this information? How do we find this information so that we, as the people out there using our buying power, can support and do business with and buy products and services from the people and the companies that we are in tune with?
Yep. So let me give kind of the definition of ESG, and then I'll talk about how you might go about making sure you're buying from good companies. So ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. And so it is a framework through which ratings agencies measure the performance of companies, and then they score companies based on a whole host of metrics under the E, a whole host of metrics under the S, and a whole host of metrics under the G. And so they give company scores based on this, and those scores get reported out to fund managers and investors on Wall Street. All right. So that's kind of how the game is played. Now, some companies look at ESG as kind of a compliance / check the box exercise. Like, okay, we don't want to be a laggard here. We don't want to have a low score. We don't want to hurt our investment outcomes. So we're going to up our game here to kind of check the boxes, or we're going to put some policies in place to make sure, we can answer the questions appropriately. What I have seen happen pretty powerfully is when a company then, as a result of, maybe they start with trying to check the boxes, but as a result of that, they become a better managed company. They are now looking at things and measuring things and managing things that they weren't measuring and managing before, and it makes them a better run company. I'll invoke Joel Makower again. He recently said that the ESG framework has become a proxy for good management for Wall Street. And I think that's exactly right. So it's a framework, but it really is a business strategy approach, a business management philosophy. We've heard for years companies talk about the triple bottom line, and we've heard more recently this idea of stakeholder capitalism, like that companies are responsible to stakeholders, not just stockholders.
Right.
But ESG is a framework that can make either of those two things happen, whether you want to think of it as triple bottom line or stakeholder capitalism. This framework, because it gives you real metrics. It asks things like, do you have a human rights policy? What percentage of your board is women and people of color, et cetera? I mean, they're really specific, granular, measurable things that the ESG rating structure is looking at. So Sustainalytics is a great resource online if you want to find what companies have what scores. Sustainalytics will kick you to kind of a Yahoo dashboard, and there are a bunch of tabs, and you can click on the sustainability tab, and it will tell you how that company has scored in their framework. You can also, some maybe, even more user-friendly options might be Just Capital. So just meaning justice, and they rank companies as well. Also, I would look at Fortune's Change the World list. And, Fortune is pulling in a bunch of different metrics, I think, as they rank companies that are, really out there trying to change the world. Those would be the places I would look at. If I were looking at doing business with a company, if I were looking at going to work for a company, or if I were looking at making a major purchase from a company, I would look at all those things to see where do they fall. Are they good guys or bad guys?
So this whole concept of voting with our dollars, we're seeing very strong in the younger populations in particular, even when they're not taking actions, or at least taking actions by who they buy from. So how does that roll up? How do we expand that idea?
Well, let me tell you, it's already happening. And Marla, if we were having this conversation in like 2 weeks, I might be able to give you some hot off the presses data. So maybe we should have a conversation.
We just might.
Sooner than later. So this is one of the things that we've been tracking for the last 15 years. And so what I can tell you is that pre-COVID, we had a good 4 to 5 year trend showing these two things, that the percentage of the population that wants to be seen as someone who buys greener products has been on an upward trajectory. So pre-COVID, 42% of Americans said, I want to be seen as someone who buys green products. So this isn't about beliefs like, oh, companies should make green products. This is about my personal brand, how I want to be judged in the court of public opinion by my friends and family and coworkers, et cetera. I want to be seen as someone who does that. All right. So that's important. So 42% pre-COVID. And again, that had been tracking in a major upward trajectory for 5 years. All right. Then there's this other question we ask, which is, can you think of a time when you have purchased or not purchased a product because of the environmental record of the manufacturer? And we also ask it about the social record of the manufacturer. And the math has worked out. And then for all the people who say, yes, I've done that, we say, name the brand, open-ended. So the math pre-COVID most recently worked out to about a quarter of the American population. So about 25% that could say, yes, I have done that, and I can give you an example of a brand. So what I want you to know is that more and more Americans working to put their values where their wallets are. And they didn't always have it right. Like when you look at the open-ended answers, there are some brands they name as, yes, I bought that brand because of their environmental record. And you look at it and go, oh, no, that should not be on the list, right? So beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Those brands happen to be really good storytellers. And, eventually, if they don't have some meat behind the perception, that'll all fall by the wayside. So we have literally just come out of the field asking these same questions again here in the middle of COVID to see how we doing? How has this changed? I expect we're going to see that it's strengthened even more, and particularly more on the social front as opposed to just the environmental front. So I think this is the direction we're heading. Like your question sounds like you're worried that we're really not going to put our values where our wallets, where our values are. But I think we're already heading in that direction, and that cat's out of the bag. I don't think we're going to turn that one in the wrong direction.
All right. I agree, especially with the younger population.
Yep, that's right.
I know when I talk to people that are baby boomers, traditionalists, see, I did pay attention to that report you did, and I've used it for years. So traditionalists being 70-ish and up.
Sure, yep.
Baby boomers, mid-50s right now and up to 60. Mostly empty nesters and stuff, or college-age kids. So a lot of those folks that I anecdotally speak with are really in their routines. So they've used a certain brand of laundry detergent for all their life. They've gone to a certain place to get their gas or their car serviced for all their lives. So for them to look at a change is a big disruption or a bigger disruption.
Generally, yes.
Yeah. So that's been one of the places, and the baby boomers in particular are a huge cohort. So there's a lot of buying power there.
Yeah. Anecdotally though, when we talk to baby boomers in like qualitative work, not just quantitative work, but we do quite a bit of work to try to get at kind of the why underneath the hard numbers. What we do sometimes hear from folks, particularly if they have grandkids, and we hear this from conservatives and liberals alike, they have a different frame on what we need to do about it. But what we'll hear, again, from grandparents is, I feel like I had so many advantages. I was given so many advantages, and I feel like we're leaving such a mess to grandkids, and I feel guilty about that. That doesn't feel right to me. And so again, you can have a Make America Great trajectory on what we ought to do about that. But then you also have the other trajectory of, we got to get the planet handled. We got to get society handled. We got to get this whole race thing handled. So I do see, you were right, that there are some boomers that are just like, this is how I've always done it. I'm going to keep doing it that way. But I do see some introspection in that group too. As they get older, they're in touch with their own mortality. They have deep love for young kids that they know are going to inherit all this. And guilt, I hate to say it, but guilt can be a really powerful driver. Like, I don't want to leave in this mess. So, what's on all of us as communications folks to do is then communicate, okay, well, what do you do? So if you're a grandparent that feels kind of guilty, what do you do about that? And point them to specific actionable things. Like, here are 3 actions you can take in your own life. Here are the brands that you ought to be buying from. Here's how you could raise your voice on social media. Like, give them specific actions and don't overwhelm them. That's one of the problems in the sustainability space, is we tend to want to give people 20 things to do. And the human brain literally can't process that. We need to give them 3 things to do or 5 things to do so they can manage that and take action.
Like, we've been working a lot harder to connect the message that your health is connected to the health of the world.
Yep.
And what's good for one is good for the other. And we're all so health conscious right now, obviously with COVID, and it's brought a whole new level of thinking about our decisions to our life.
Yep. Let's go there for a minute and talk about the built environment, right? Because we've been talking kind of corporate sustainability and corporate good. You and I both, you primarily do work in the built environment. About 70% of our business is in the built environment as well. And so we track all of that. And boy, I am really excited about the opportunities for the built environment. I am passionate about high performance homes. I'm a board member of EBA, the Energy Environmental Building Alliance. And I think that people's eyes are now open to their health and the impact of the air around them on their health. We were already seeing trends going in this direction, that people were getting more aware of the air they breathe in their homes. And now that we've all been faced with the prospect of, oh my gosh, there could be times in my life when I am locked in my home, I damn well better make sure that the air I breathe in there is clean and healthy and filtered.
Good.
Right? So we are now awakened to a thing that's always been there, but we just weren't awakened to it before. So I think there's tremendous opportunity, not only for that, but the other thing we're seeing, Marla, is that there is kind of this prepper mentality that's a lot more mainstream now. This used to be something we kind of poked fun of, like, oh, look at those crazy people who stockpile stuff. Well, mainstream Americans, as we do our ongoing social media listening, mainstream Americans are beginning to embrace that idea. And I think prepping is about control. and resilience, and it's about being ready for anything. So I think we'll also see a big interest in energy efficiency. Like, let me be the king of my castle. Let me keep it comfortable. Let me keep it managed. I think we'll see a big interest in solar and storage. Yes. So I think that the implications for the built environment out of COVID are amazing. I hope that home builders and contractors and remodelers take full advantage of it and use this now to get out there with messaging in a way that, hadn't really been pushed to the forefront in the past.
5 myths of green homes are 5 things that you probably believe about green homes that may be costing you thousands of dollars. Which myth do you hear the most? Get your copy of 5 Myths at greenhomecoach.com and click on the button for 5 Myths of Green Homes. You can also connect with me on Facebook at Green Home Coach and let me know the green home myth you hear the most. I'll also share tips, products, and resources. Be sure to download your copy of 5 Myths of Green Homes now, and then check back to learn more. The whole conversation about health and wellness and how the built environment circles around that and can do it in a way that is very meaningful has really been a pretty hot topic of conversation on the National Association of Home Builders blogs and some of the things that I follow there. In some ways, those of us that have been in this space for so long are going, it's about time.
Yep.
We've been telling you, and now you've had to have it, in your face.
Right.
To get them, but we're human beings, and it oftentimes takes a crisis for us to really get, how big the situation is, and that definitely has come to bear.
Yep. So I'm excited to see what plays out there. I will say the one thing maybe I'm not super excited about, I think we'll see homes get bigger. There was a great poll from Fortune does an annual they do a Fortune 500 CEO poll, and I'm going to get the stats slightly wrong, but this came out like a month ago. Something like 17% of CEOs said that they expect that more than 10% of their staff who went home to work during COVID will not come back. I think we're going to see the commercial real estate sector really slide backward, and I think we're going to see homes get bigger, because people are going to go, oh, well, I can work from here. I can entertain from here. I can cook from here. So let me just have more space to spread out and do all that. Oh, and let me have somewhere to shove the kids so they can do school online, please.
Yep.
So yeah.
Flex space is great if you're not there all the time, but this being in our home so much has, they've already started expecting more increase in home offices, as well as rooms that can be used for exercise, for schooling, and getaway spaces. Even on some of the HGTV shows they've had a new show that's kind of in a box decorating. And again, it's been centered a lot around how do you make your home more usable and more livable. So it's definitely in the conversation right now. And I mean, you're looking at my home office for years. And when we looked for a home with an extra bedroom because I needed an office.
Yep.
But I think you're right. I think a lot more of us, and now that we've realized how easy it really is to work from home, there's no excuse.
That's exactly right. So I think the trick will be, how do we make homes a little bit bigger to accommodate all these different needs that a home now needs to fulfill without increasing the environmental footprint of those homes? So again, this is back to high performance building.
Exactly. And there is, by doing it smarter, we can not impact the footprint of that building, the energy footprint, the carbon footprint of that building, if we do it smart.
Yep.
And there's all kinds of knowledge out there that helps us do that. We just need to make sure that we're embracing it.
Well, I'll put in a plug for one of our clients, Pearl Certification. They have an amazing user-friendly way of rating homes that can help in the home buying and selling process, but can also just help any of us as average consumers go, okay, how do I know if that's a home with a good energy footprint or not? A rating system like Pearl helps you see that. So hopefully over the next few years, that will become really mainstream as well.
Yeah, there's a number of rating systems out there. And I would urge anybody that's on the live stream or the podcast or listening to us recorded, reach out to us and we can help you find programs and the people that do those programs in your area. Because there are regional programs, there's national programs, there's all kinds of programs. And regional is important because everybody's climate is different. So you want to make sure you're building for your climate. So lots of ways people can get started. focusing in on really supporting what they believe and how they are spending their money, the kinds of things they're buying.
Yep.
This really can go down to a very granular level. I'm very specific about what kind of products I buy to bring in my home for my household use, for our personal use. I'm even using a online grocery ordering system that helps to eliminate food waste. So there's a lot, and I work to share this with folks as much as I can. If you have a question and I haven't told you how to answer it, I'll find somebody that can. I think there's so many answers out there, and getting those out to everybody, which you guys do a great job. Hey, before we wrap up though, will you give your website? Because your blogs are absolutely incredible, and the market research that y'all put out that anybody can access is so easy to understand. And I really applaud you and your team for doing I can refer so many people to your site because your information is so easy to understand.
Well, thank you. And you know what, I will say that that's a great example of a triple bottom line approach as a business owner and an entrepreneur coming to you. We spend a lot of money. We have an in-house research team, but we literally have 2 people on staff that do nothing but track the market sentiment around sustainability. And now we leverage that because I get out and talk about it a lot. We publish free reports, which drives people to us. But the thing is it helps everybody in business. It raises the tide for everybody because we put it all out there free. So it's like the world benefits, but then we get a benefit because it helps with our marketing as well. So it's a great example of, look, you can do the right thing for people, planet, and your bottom line at the same time, right? So website is Shelton GRP. So it's group abbreviated, SheltonGRP.com. And if you just click on, there's a blog link at the top. There is also a reports link at the top. And just about any page you're on, I think there are little pop-ups that come up and ask you to sign up for our newsletter. And that's the best way to stay connected is every 2 weeks we send out an insights newsletter that will have a blog post that's usually talking about something we're thinking about, something we're working on, something we've learned, some new insights. It is not at all a salesy thing. It is trying to further the conversation around sustainability. We get a lot of positive feedback on it, and sign up for it. And if you don't find it useful, you can unsubscribe and I will not have my feelings hurt. So please feel free to do that.
I know you can only read so much, right? But
that's right.
I do find so much useful information out there, and I really appreciate all that y'all do to keep it coming.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's same for you, by the way. I mean, you've been in the trenches fighting the good fight on green living for a long time, since, back when people probably thought you were the crazy green lady. And now they're like, oh,
I have been called that.
Now they're like, oh, wait, you were onto something. Wow. And you're like, uh-huh.
Yeah, it's been interesting moving a lot of that online.
Yeah.
Not having the day-to-day contact working with builders and remodelers. And so that's been interesting, but I think the time has come.
Yep.
Definitely a whole new world. I will post the links that we talked about so that folks that are listening to this can have access to that information. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your time.
Oh, I so enjoyed the conversation, Marla. I always love talking to you. You ask great questions. We are both about the same thing. And so I think talking to you always sort of deepens my thinking as well. So I appreciate you making the time.
Well, I appreciate you. And we look forward to all of you having a chance to hear this and take some action. That's what really matters.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
That wraps this episode of the Everyday Green Home Podcast. Ready to use what you learned? Get the show notes with all the resources mentioned in this episode. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening and for leaving a review. And remember that living a little better and greener is easier than you think.